The Great Recession of 2008 dropped the price of crude oil by a third to $70 a barrel. In an emergency meeting on October 24th, OPEC cut back production by 1.5 million barrels a day. By December 2008, crude dipped even lower to $45 a barrel. So OPEC shut in another 2.2 million barrels a day. Prices slowly recovered, hitting $90 a barrel by early 2011. In response to governmental corruption and economic stagnation, the Arab Spring erupted in Tunisia in January 2011 and spread to several other countries in the Arab world. By February 2011, revolutionary forces overthrew Libya's leader Muammar Gaddafi. This slashed another 1.5 million barrels a day of oil. Supply dropped to match lower demand, recovering prices to a new sweet spot of around $100 to $120 a barrel. OPEC's spare production capacity also returned to 5%, a level not seen since the 1990s. But the continuing Iraq War, the Libyan civil war, and international sanctions against Iran's nuclear ambitions squeezed oil supply, pushing prices up again. On June 23, 2011, the US and the International Energy Agency released some of their strategic stock in a controversial attempt to dampen prices, a tactic Biden is using in 2023. But in the end, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Kuwait boosted their production. They far surpassed old quotas, and prices returned to around $100 by 2012. However, this oil production increase shrunk Saudi Arabia's spare production capacity yet again. This made the market vulnerable to price swings and threatened Saudi Arabia's clout within OPEC, reigniting internal power struggles. This unnerved Washington. How else could the oil market stabilize itself? Well, let's consider fracking. Fracking involves the obliteration of rocks to free oil or gas molecules trapped inside. Early attempts at fracking utilized torpedoes, but in 1997, a newly developed method blasted rocks with pressurized water and sand. By 2015, the US produced 4.5 million barrels a day of shale oil. Many viewed shale oil as the new swing producer because, unlike traditional oil wells, its production could be quickly ramped up or down, suggesting greater market elasticity. However, steep decline rates would require the constant fracking of new wells to maintain market stability. Shale's meteoric rise, the return of Libyan oil despite a continuing civil war, and weakened global demand decreased oil prices below $100 on September 4th, 2014. Prices continued to decline, but no one wanted to cut production. And after 19 months, oil prices bottomed out at $26.68 a barrel on January 20th, 2016. This was the largest drop in 30 years after 2008. Shale oil failed as the new swing producer, mainly because of the high upfront costs required to frack. Heavily indebted frackers needed to turn a profit and often couldn't stop drilling without losing their lease. This returned some pricing power back into the hands of OPEC. Saudi Arabia then promised new production cuts. The announcement itself did stabilize prices, but there was no actual follow-through. Since 2008, boom and bust at levels not seen for 100 years have returned. The absence of spare production capacity and a true swing producer leaves the market in its most fundamentally volatile state, one severe price oscillation reinforcing the next. The onset of the COVID-19 pandemic decimated oil demand, forcing OPEC to actually cut production by 10 million barrels a day. Demand has rebounded, but as a precautionary measure, OPEC and its allies, together OPEC Plus, cut production again in November 2022 and in April 2023. Although Russia's need for oil revenue to fund its war with Ukraine has created a glut. Furthermore, as countries like China and Brazil seek to purchase oil with their own currencies, what is the future of the petrodollar? Oil is more than just the lifeblood of modern civilization. It represents, as leading oil expert Daniel Yergin states, a quest for money and power. It also reflects the irrational structures that will lead to our ruin. Even in the face of undeniable climate change, politicians refuse to robustly support alternative energy solutions because long-term goals are not so helpful to short-term election cycles. If oil is a quintessentially capitalist story, you tell me. Is it working? Is it serving?